Okay, hello everybody. So we're going to be doing lesson 5, family planning and contraception today. We're going to talk a little bit about anatomy so that you can understand what birth control is doing to the body, as well as all the FDA approved contraceptive methods. This is usually the lesson that most people are interested in because it's a lot of interesting information. So for sure, if you have any questions after this lesson, make sure to submit them on the anonymous question option after you do your reflection. So as usual, we're going to start with our video that we always start with at the beginning. And then right when it loads, I will play it for you all. Okay, so here's the video.
Hey Esther, can we talk about our relationship again?
You and your serious talks. Okay.
Well, this is serious. I've been thinking a lot about taking our relationship to the next level.
We've already talked about this, Amon.
No, what I mean is the next level.
You're gonna have to spell it out, babe.
I want us to do more than just make out.
Oh, you mean have sex?
Well, yeah! Are you ready for that?
First of all, women think about this stuff. We have to. Honestly, Amon, I don't know if I'm ready. There are so many things to consider. Birth control, what kind of birth control, like birth control pills or condoms or IUDs. It's serious.
Oh, don't worry about those things, Esther. We're young and in love. That's all that matters.
Okay, so based on that video, you'll watch the second part at the ending, which you all are pretty familiar with. But just to kind of recap what happened in the video, obviously Amon and Esther are having a conversation about the next step that they want to take in their relationship, but they're still trying to figure out whether they are ready for it or whether they have done their research correctly to take that next step forward. Your learning objectives for today are going to be defining family planning, identifying a variety of FDA approved contraceptives, locate community reproductive health services, and I will actually guide you through on how you can do that online through a website that we always offer to our youth and our students. You just put in your zip code, but I'll show you all how to do that when we get there. And identifying reasons for sexual abstinence. Your evidence of achievement is going to be if you participate in all the lesson activities that are on your Google Classroom, if you complete all of those activities, if you identify the benefits of sexual abstinence, and if you are committed to using birth control and reproductive health services when needed. Okay, so what is a family? That looks different to everybody. It's usually just any combination of adults or children who live together in a caring or supportive relationship. And some examples of that could be a husband with a wife plus children. It could be a father or mother with his or her children, so a single parent household. It could be grandparents raising their grandchildren. It could be a same-sex couple raising their children, but like I said, it's any combination of adults and or children who live together. So whatever you consider to be your family is a completely valid response. Okay, now what is family planning? It's a little bit different than just describing what a family is. But I'm hoping some of you have heard of this terming before, and if you haven't, I'll give you the responses as to what it is right now. First, I just want to give you a kind of moment to think about what you think family planning might be. If we're discussing contraceptives today, it kind of gives you an idea of what we mean when we say family planning. So, family planning is deciding when to have children, it's deciding how many children you want to have, and using birth control methods or contraceptive methods to make those kind of choices. What are some reasons for delaying becoming a parent? So some responses that we get when we're in classes are people want to wait until they are in a stable and committed relationship. People want to wait until they can support the cost of a child. Some people aren't completely emotionally mature enough to be a parent, so they want to wait until they reach that level of maturity. And others just don't have any interest in becoming a parent. Also, we just want to emphasize, since we are talking about contraceptive methods today and family planning, that sexual abstinence is the only certain way to prevent an unplanned pregnancy and or an STI. I think I mentioned it in other lessons before, but the reason that we emphasize this and just say it is because, of course, if you're being sexually abstinent, that means you're not coming in contact with anyone in any sexual way. So if you are not putting yourself in that position, then there's absolutely no way that you could get a sexually transmitted infection nor have an unplanned pregnancy. Okay? So just remember that choosing to abstain from sex is the only certain way to prevent an unplanned pregnancy or infection, or an infection with I don't know where that was going with that, but just way to prevent an infection. Moving on. While birth control methods will protect and help you protect against getting pregnant, most do not protect against you getting an STI. Also, any naked genital to genital contact, while technically abstaining from, say, anal sex, oral sex, penetrative sex, vaginal sex, say you're just body rubbing on another person with no clothes on, that can still transmit an STI. And you all will get more information about that on lesson 9 when we talk about certain STIs that can be transmitted through just genital to genital contact. And another way to help prevent against STIs would be any kind of, or preventing and abstaining any kind of injection drug use, which is important to prevent the infection of HIV and other viral STIs. Again, if that all sounds like a lot to you right now, we will have a lesson dedicated to preventing STIs where we will go over all of them, but just want to make it very clear that most of these methods, although they prevent against pregnancy, they do not also prevent against the transmission of STIs. Okay, so what is contraception? It sounds like a big word. We throw it out around a lot, like people know what it means. But what it actually means is the use of artificial methods and techniques to prevent pregnancy. I would ask you all what type of birth control methods you've heard of, but since we're not in a classroom setting, just kind of think about the contraceptive methods you've heard of, and then I'm going to list a couple, and if you thought of any of those, then you're right. So we have things like condom, the ring, the patch, the shot, the pill, all of the methods we'll talk about today. But if you thought about any of those methods when you were trying to see if you actually knew any kind of methods or contraceptives, then you were correct. Those are some methods. I didn't name all of them, so if you hear one of the ones you thought about later on in the lesson, then there you go. That's a contraceptive method. So in your Google Classroom, I have provided a birth control guide as part of this activity, which is what are birth control choices for teens? So you're going to use that guide to answer these questions. It will be on the Google form, and it's pretty self-explanatory when you look at the Google form, okay? Keep in mind that the question does say what are birth control choices for teens. So when we say what is the most effective form, what is the least effective form, we mean for teens specifically. And that will make more sense once you look at the chart and you see how things are listed. And also when you finish watching the video, because in other slides, we will mention things that will help you answer that Google form. So we will skip this for now, but this will be an activity on your Google Classroom. Okay, so what are the types of contraception? There are different types, and the reason that we go through these types is so we can understand what it is that they're doing to our body and how it is that they are preventing unplanned pregnancy or the transmission of STIs. So we have barrier methods. Those prevent the sperm from reaching the egg because the barrier basically prevents your fluids from mixing. So we have external condoms, which are also known as regular male condoms. They go over the penis. When a person ejaculates into it, there's a barrier, so none of those fluids enter the other person's fluids or the other person's also body opening. Then we also have internal condoms, also known as female condoms, but we try to use more inclusive terms, so you'll hear me say external and internal. Internal condoms are inserted into the vaginal opening. They are the picture on the top right-hand side. They look kind of large, but what they are is they're inserted into the vaginal opening, and again, it serves as a barrier method. So when a person ejaculates into the vaginal opening, it prevents the sperm from swimming up and creates kind of a wall so that none of your fluids are mixed and no sperm is ever reaching any kind of egg. Then we have hormonal methods. So these prevent pregnancy by interfering with ovulation, fertilization, and or the implantation of the fertilized egg. Now, I realize that I've said 3 words there that you probably have never heard before: ovulation, fertilization, and implantation. What I'm going to do is switch out of this presentation real quickly and switch into a short anatomy aspect of it so that we can understand what I mean when I'm saying ovulation, fertilization, and implantation, okay? But right before I do that, I'm just going to explain how you can access some of these contraceptive methods. So both can be obtained over the counter or by prescription. And to be a little bit more clear, over the counter methods can be purchased without a prescription, which would include condoms, sponges, spermicidal foam or gel, and emergency contraception. And then prescription contraceptive methods require a doctor's prescription. So it would be the pill, the patch, the ring, those need a prescription. Also, hormonal methods include oral contraceptives, the patch, the shot, and the ring, as well as some of the IUDs. There's 2 types of IUDs. One of them is a hormonal method. And barrier methods are male or internal condoms, external condoms, diaphragm, cervical caps, the sponge, and spermicides. Okay. So again, if you don't know what those are, in your Google Classroom, I have listed videos with short little Planned Parenthood videos that describe each method, the side effects, and how you can access them, and basically what they do. I've listed videos to the most commonly used birth control methods. The birth control guide provided in your activity has all of the birth control methods listed on there, even sterilization, which if you don't know what sterilization is, I promise you, you will after this lesson. So I'm going to switch from this into our anatomy presentation, and that way you will understand what the words ovulation, fertilization, and implantation mean. Okay, so here's our short little anatomy presentation. All right, so actually, before I continue, there are photos in this presentation. They're not actual photos of someone's genitals. They're simply sketches and drawings, okay? So bear with me, bring up your level of maturity, and just be open to learning about these body parts because they're completely normal. A lot of people have them, and it's good for us to know what our body parts look like. So the first one is gonna be what's on the outside. So this is a vulva. Your whole life, you were probably told that this entire thing was the vagina, but that's incorrect. You were taught the wrong V. The entire genital here is the vulva, okay? The vagina is just a small opening in the vulva, but the vulva encompasses a lot of different body parts. The vulva consists of the labias, which we have the outer labias, also known as the lips. Then we have the inner labia, which is a smaller tissue on either side as well. So outer and inner labia. What else is on the outside is the clitoris, which is this tiny little dot, if you will, right here. Now, the part that people with a vulva see is this tiny little dot right here. But in reality, what is sitting on the inside of your body, I will show you a picture of it, is quite amazing. This is what the clitoris actually looks like. So the part that most people see is only the tip of the clitoris. But the clitoris actually looks like a complete wishbone, okay? The clitoris has 2 times more nerve endings than the head of a penis. It also looks like a wishbone, and it surrounds 2 bulbs. These 2 bulbs right here on either side are filled with tissues and blood, and when a person is aroused, they actually get erect, if you will, and they swell up around, which they're located kind of around the vaginal opening right here. Okay, so they enlarge and fill with blood when a person is aroused, right around the vaginal opening. So when a person is engaging in penetrative or vaginal sex, those erect and aroused bulbs kind of surround the vaginal opening. Okay, so that's what that looks like on the inside. What we also have in the vulva is the urethra, which is where people urinate from. So when pee exits the body, it is coming out of the urethral opening. Then right below the urethral opening, you have the vaginal opening, also known as the vagina. So that's the V we were taught. But that's just a very small part of the complete genitals, okay? So the vagina then leads us to a whole different aspect of the body on the inside. But before we go through the vagina, right at the opening of the vagina, there's something called the hymen. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, what is the hymen? I always say this in every class that I've been to, but there's a slang term out there or a slang phrase that people always use and say, so-and-so got their cherry popped. Now, some of you might be laughing because you're like, oh yeah, I've heard that term before. And some of you are kind of confused as to what does that even mean? So when people say things like that, they're actually talking about the act or the idea of someone having sex, penetrative and vaginal sex for the very first time, and there being blood. Now, the reason that this happens to some people, and not everyone, but the reason that this happens is because some people have a hymen. So no, there's no cherry down there. We don't have a cherry in there, but some people do have a hymen, and everyone's hymen looks differently, okay? Some people might not even have a hymen. For those of them who do, it can look like this hymen here, which is labeled normal. It can look like this one, which is septate, meaning it has 2 holes, and sometimes when the person first has penetrative sex or doing other activities, this can tear and there can be a slight amount of blood. Somebody could have one that looks like this. Somebody could have one that's completely closed off, and others can have one that have a tiny opening. Okay, it's kind of like a flesh tissue laid right over the vaginal opening. Okay, when it tears, that tear can cause there to be some kind of blood. Now, if it tears, it doesn't mean that it's going to tear and fall out. Okay, what happens is this tissue kind of regroups itself together and repairs itself. Okay, so it'll go back to its original form. I just want to make sure that we understand that this does not define losing your virginity for everyone. Some people, as I mentioned before, don't have a hymen, okay? Other people, so that being said, if they don't have a hymen and they never have any sort of blood markings the first time that they engage in sexual activity, whether that's penetrative or vaginal sex with somebody, then that means that they will not there won't be any blood. So how can we classify when they lose their virginity, okay? For others, depending on what your hymen looks like, some people might have a hymen that's slightly larger and also never tear or have any blood the first time that they have penetrative or vaginal sex. So again, how do we define the virginity? Another thing, a lot of people have a different definition for virginity. Some people define virginity as you losing your virginity the very first time you kiss someone. Others define it as the very first time somebody has oral sex with you, the very first time somebody has anal sex with you, the very first time someone has penetrative or vaginal sex with you. We all have a different definition. There is no one universal definition for virginity, so I want you all to be very careful when you use the word losing your virginity because it means different things to certain people, okay? Lastly, some people can tear their hymen by doing activities like riding a bicycle, horseback riding. At times, maybe the first time someone inserts a tampon or a certain, a tampon into the vaginal opening. So when we say the term so-and-so popped so-and-so's cherry, we're using it very loosely and it's very hard to understand what that means. So I encourage you all to instead talk about the hymen and use that as your basis if you would like to. But like I said, some people tear their hymen through other activities that do not involve any kind of sexual activity, okay? If you have any other questions, feel free to submit them in the anonymous little question box we have at the end for the reflection. Now, once we pass the vagina, going through into the vaginal opening, this is what's on the inside. So the vaginal opening is right here. We were just at the end here where the hymen was. There's the vaginal canal. Then we have the cervix, which is this small opening right here. and then we have the uterus. The uterus has uterine lining on each side, also known as the endometrium. The uterine lining is filled with nutrients that collect every 28 days or so, which is your body telling them that we're ready for pregnancy. We're collecting all these nutrients to feed a fertilized egg. And that's what your body's doing, okay? On either side of the uterus, we have fallopian tubes, and then the fallopian tubes connect to these ovaries. So, do you all remember when I said the word ovulation? I'm going to tell you all what that means now. Ovulation is when an egg from the ovaries, your ovaries are filled with all the eggs that you're going to have for the rest of your life. Every 28 days or so, your ovaries will release an egg. This egg will travel through the fallopian tubes and into the uterus. Now, say during this time period in which ovulation is happening and you have an egg in your uterus, you decide to have sex. If you have penetrative sex and a person ejaculates in or around the vagina and the sperm meets the egg, then fertilization is going to occur. So that's fertilization. When the sperm meets the egg, it is now fertilized the egg. That egg has to properly implant into the uterine lining in order for that fertilized egg to be able to grow, because the fertilized egg needs nutrients to nourish it and help it grow into a fetus. So implantation is when a fertilized egg attaches itself to the uterine lining and then starts to grow into a fetus. And then that's how pregnancy happens. Now, not everyone is having a baby every 28 days. So what happens when there's no sperm meeting the egg and there's no fertilization or implantation? So what's happening then is the egg is still traveling every 28 days or so through the fallopian tubes and into your uterus. But if it doesn't meet any sperm, then it hangs out there, and your body basically sends these signals of, well, I'm not really serving, any kind of purpose right now because I'm just an egg. Nothing has fertilized me. So your body sends signals to your uterus to then contract and break off all that uterine lining, and then it exits through the vaginal canal, and that's menstruation. That's known as your period. So every 28 days or so, about every month, the contractions are your uterine walls kind of breaking off that tissue, and then it's being released through the vaginal canal. Okay. All right, so moving forward, now we talked about people with vulvas. We're going to talk about people with penises. So people with penises have most of their functions on the outside, but I'll talk about some of the things that are also on the inside. Before I talk about all these functions, I want us to distinguish what is the difference between semen and sperm. So just think about that for a little bit. Sperm is the actual reproductive cell. This little guy right here. This is sperm, okay? It's the actual reproductive cell. Semen is the fluid that sperm swims in, okay? So when someone ejaculates, that's semen because it's fluid with the sperm inside of it, all right? Versus sperm, when we say sperm, we're talking about just the reproductive cell itself, okay? So sperm are created in the testicles, which is this red circle right here. These testicles produce sperm constantly, and they swim around in their habitat in the testicles. When someone is going to ejaculate, the testicle releases some sperm through this little tubing on the outside and then up into this tubing called the vas deferens. So the sperm swim past the vas, in the vas deferens, up, and then they reach the seminal vesicle, which is this little area right here. The seminal vesicle, as well as the prostate gland right here, create the perfect kind of fluid for the sperm to be able to survive in, to swim out of the penis, okay? The seminal vesicle and the prostate offer one offers a more acidic kind of fluid, and the other one offers a more basic kind of fluid to create the perfect environment for the sperm to be able to survive when it's exiting the body, okay? Which is described right there on the what is a prostate, what is the seminal vesicle. Once the sperm reaches the seminal fluid by passing through the seminal vesicle and the prostate gland, it swims out of the vas deferens and then out of the penis through the opening. And that is known as ejaculation, okay? Now, what happens before someone ejaculates is the body tells the vas deferens basically, I need to clean you so that there is a clear passage for the sperm to travel outside. So before the sperm and before a person ejaculates, there's something known as pre-ejaculation or pre-cum. That is only the seminal fluid itself with no sperm inside of it. That is simply the fluid released through the prostate and the seminal vesicle to cleanse the vas deferens of anything that might be blocking or in this area before the person ejaculates. So pre-cum, pre-ejaculation cleans the vas deferens, and then when a person actually ejaculates, that is the seminal fluid with the sperm. Now you may be thinking, oh, so pre-ejaculation or pre-cum, however you want to call it, and whatever makes more sense to you, doesn't contain any sperm, so people can't get pregnant from it. Not quite. What can happen sometimes is, say someone masturbated 2 hours before they had sex with somebody, and they chose not to use a condom when they're having sex with that person. That pre-ejaculation is gonna be released through the penis, and the person is not gonna have any idea because there's no warning, basically. It is just released from the penis. What can happen is that pre-ejaculation, because the person, say, masturbated 2 hours before, there could be some sperm hanging out right here on these areas of the vas deferens. That pre-ejaculation is like, all right, I'm making way, I'm clearing the space for there to not be any kind of blockages when the person actually ejaculates. But the sperm hanging out on this part of the vas deferens can hitch a ride with pre-ejaculation, and a person can get pregnant off of pre-cum or pre-ejaculation. And that's how people oftentimes have an unplanned pregnancy thinking that, oh, I haven't actually ejaculated yet, so we can still have unprotected sex, and then I'll just pull out before I ejaculate, which is known as the withdrawal method or pulling out, okay? So be careful. Lastly, aside from the functions that I've mentioned, other parts of people with a penis, we have the penis, which is on the outside. The urethra is the same tube through which urine comes from the bladder, as well as through which a person ejaculates. So people with a vulva have a urethra opening, they pee from one area, and then a vaginal opening, which is they have sex, and they also release their period through a different opening. For people with a penis, they urinate and also ejaculate through the same opening, okay? At the end of the penis, you have a foreskin. Some people have a foreskin. Other people who are circumcised do not have a foreskin. There is no right or wrong. It's completely up to that person and their beliefs, or whether they decide that they want to have the foreskin or not. Just keep in mind that if you do have a foreskin, that you are cleaning yourself properly to avoid any kind of infections. Lastly, everyone has an anus and a rectum, so we won't talk about that too much, but we have the testicles, and then on the outside of the testicles, we have the scrotum, which protects the testicles. If you have any questions on what I've mentioned on any of these slides, go ahead and submit them to the anonymous line, but that concludes this little anatomy piece, and now I'm going to go back to the contraceptive methods. Okay, so moving forward from what we just learned in our anatomy piece, I would encourage you to possibly pause the video at this moment and then watch the attached videos explaining all the different types of contraceptive methods before continuing, okay? Now, moving forward, what are some methods that teens should avoid? First, we have sterilization. So sterilization can look differently for two people. Now that we've talked about anatomy, I can talk about what it is that it does to your body so you can understand it. Sterilization for people with a uterus would be cutting the fallopian tubes and cauterizing them, means burning the edges So the ovulation cannot occur, and that would prevent someone from ever having a child. There is also something called tubal ligation, which would be quote unquote tying the tubes to prevent the passage as well of the egg going through the ovaries into the fallopian tube and into the uterus. Sterilization for people with a penis would be a slight incision on the back of the testicles. And what they would do is they would insert a small blade, they would cut the vas deferens, so basically cutting off the pathway for sperm to travel from the testicles up into the vas deferens and outside of a person's body, basically to the opening of the penis. With that being said, sterilization for people with penises means that a person will still ejaculate, but that fluid will not contain any sperm in it. Teens should also avoid withdrawal and pulling out. We talked about that in the anatomy video. So as I mentioned, people are not aware of when they're pre-ejaculating or when precum is being released from the body. So it makes it very difficult to pull out correctly, as well as young teens. They're going through a lot of changes in their body and a lot of hormones. So pulling out correctly would not be the best choice. I believe it is only 60% effective. That's basically a D-. I don't know about you all, but I would not be trusting those odds. Okay. Fertility awareness or rhythm method. So this one means that you are just tracking your basal body temperature, your ovulation, when you have your menstruation, and your cervical mucus. There are some people who do it, but for teens and younger adults, it is very difficult to be very in tune with the different functions of your body, just because there's a lot of changes occurring and not everyone is on a strict month to month period. Some people don't get their period every single month. Some people get it every 2 months, every 3 months, and are very irregular. So we do not, what's the word that I'm looking for? This is one of those methods that you kind of want to avoid because of that. Okay. So what is Plan B? I'm assuming you all have watched all the other contraceptive videos, and in that same video you watch what an emergency contraceptive is, but I will still go over it here. So Plan B, also known as emergency contraceptive or EC, is often called the morning after pill. It stops the release of an egg, or it prevents an egg from meeting the sperm if an egg was released. It is not an abortion pill. It is before the fact of someone getting pregnant. So it works best when started right away, no later than 3 to 5 days after unprotected sex. So I'll give you an example. Say you were having sex with your partner, and in the middle of you all having vaginal penetrative sex, the condom broke. Some of that person's ejaculation entered your body, and that was your only form of protection. And so you're scared that you might get pregnant because you aren't ready for that. What you all can do is visit your local CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Target, any place that has a pharmacy can offer and sell this to you over the counter. It is, I believe, around $50, or I think they have lowered the prices to make it more accessible. If you do not have that kind of money, you can also get it for free at a Planned Parenthood or any kind of clinic that offers free reproductive health care, so also known as, Family Pact. You can get a Plan B pill for free. The reason that I say it is not an abortion pill is because if you are already pregnant and you take this pill, it will not do anything to the pregnancy. It won't terminate the pregnancy. There are things known as an abortion pill, but that is completely separate from what this is. So Plan B is before the fact of you getting pregnant. It prevents the egg and the sperm from ever meeting. So nothing is fertilized, nothing is implanted. The person doesn't get pregnant, okay? Keep in mind that these are not an option to be taking constantly because it is a way higher dosage of hormones. So if it's an emergency and you need it, go ahead and take it. But if you find yourself needing to take this pill more than 3 times in 1 year, you should really think about finding a more consistent birth control method. In all states, people at any age can purchase some type of emergency contraception pills over the counter without parental consent and without a prescription. Now, when we say that, it's not that we're encouraging you not to tell your parents, but we understand that sometimes people are in households where they don't feel safe or comfortable to discuss this with their guardians. So if that is the case, just know that you can access this completely confidential at any location without a parental consent, regardless of your age. But we encourage that communication. And if you can reach out to a trusted adult, highly encourage it because they can offer you a lot of wisdom and help. So how do you locate these planning services? I mentioned that most of these, that you can get Plan B for free, or any of these other methods, you can get them for free at any California Family Pact reproductive health clinics. And what that means is Family Pact is basically a location in which, if you are the ages within 12 of 19, you can receive free and confidential health care, reproductive health care. So you can get tested for STIs, you can get all of the FDA approved contraceptive methods that we mentioned, which you are going to watch videos about and are on your birth control guide. And you can get women well exams, things like that, male well exams, very, very helpful. And it's completely confidential, meaning they don't ask for any parental information. If you go there alone, then, and you're within the ages of 12 to 19, then you can get all these services for free without any questions asked. And according to the law known as HIPAA, that means that the clinic cannot share any information with anybody other than you. And if the clinic does share that information with anyone that is not you, they can be technically sued because they're violating your health rights. So students can receive a list of local California Family Health Pact clinics on their cell phone by texting the word clinic plus your zip code to 877-877. Non-California residents can locate a reproductive health clinic by texting their zip code to know it, which is 566948. And I'm going to show you another way that we can access information. So you can go to teensource.org, you'll click find a clinic, and it will take you to this map. Then here you go ahead and you input your zip code. I'll put in your school zip code. You can put within 5 miles of each, however much you would like. You click search, and it gives you a list of all the Family Pact clinics around you. So whichever one is closest to you, you can visit. I'm aware that right now, because of COVID-19, a lot of these might be more telehealth, but they offer also resources for letting you know which ones are accessible and which ones are not at the moment, okay? So just an option. All right, moving forward. So your activity, what are reasons for delaying or abstaining from sex? Go ahead and list the reasons why young people should delay or abstain from sexual activity according to you. It will be on your Google Classroom. You'll just fill it out and give us a couple of responses. All right, we're gonna watch the second part of the video. As always, once it loads, I will play it.
So what do you say, beautiful?
Look, do you want to have a baby right now?
What? No. Who said anything about babies?
Well, I don't want to have a baby either. So that's why we have to talk about birth control if we're going to have sex.
I know you're right. I'm just frustrated. It's crazy that we want to share this special thing based on love, but have to worry about such serious stuff. Well, I know using condoms is good for not only preventing pregnancy, but also STIs.
Yeah, that's right. We can get several kinds of birth control at the community clinic. No questions asked.
Hang on. Now I'm thinking more clearly and you're moving fast. Let's be real. The only way to be 100% sure we won't make a baby and won't catch any diseases is by not having sex at all.
That's true. Abstinence works like that. It sounds so corny, but Hey, maybe we can make abstinence cool again. Sex is a big deal. You know, I'm really happy with where our relationship is right now.
Me too. How about we just keep talking about it and take the next step only if we're ready to?
Deal.
All right, so how did the story end? Again, this will be on your message board. Someone can, or all of you will tell us what happened in the second half of the story and what you can learn from this. Lastly, your quiz will be also in your Google Classroom, so please fill that out. This concludes this lessons video for today. If you have any questions, because we went over a lot of different type of information, or if you have any questions about the birth control methods in which you're going to watch separate videos for, please ask us in our anonymous question option on your reflection. We will post answers to those anonymous questions on the message boards, and I really hope you all got in the information that you needed or were looking for. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.